Hi, everybody. Welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. This is Church and World News. And have a really interesting article about President Holland, something that Elder Renlund said about his recovery when he was hospitalized, how the fact that he's back is a miracle. So this is a pretty neat article. We're going to go over it. And then the world just keeps getting stranger and stranger. We're going to talk about a recent happening with Venezuela annexing a part of Guyana. And this just happened over the last few days. And we're going to we're going to look at just these like territorial disputes going on throughout the world. Russia, China, and Taiwan and others, and how I wonder if we're like starting to see kind of like a domino effect. We'll talk about that. And then we're going to look at the progress of the war in Israel because they've made some advancements. So before we get into that, just a quick word about my sponsor. Hi, everybody. I just got my Artza box, and I was looking forward to this one because it's the Christmas box. And last year, they sent a couple ornaments, and I was hoping that they would do that this year, and they did. Got these two ceramic ornaments. One says Shalom, one in English and one in Hebrew. And then you have the State of Israel with the Star of David inside. I want to show you the ones that I got last year. These are both made out of olive wood. They both have the nativity scene. I like this one because it's the Star of David and it's 3D. It's pretty neat. And so I was excited about that, getting some new ornaments. They also sent these Bundakim halva-coated nuts, and I don't know what that is exactly, but it is good. It's sweet. They also sent date syrup. I'm excited to try that. And then the other thing that I really like from this package is this Star of David candle holder. And on the back, it has a little sticker that says made in Bethlehem. So these are just a few of the things that were in this package. So the way that it works is you can either do the seasonal plan, which is basically just a one-time box, or you can pay for the annual plan, which gives you 4 boxes for the year. Now, in the description box of each of my videos, you'll see this link right here. Order your Artza box from Israel. And if you use Jared25 as the code, you'll get 25% off. Just one more thing I wanted to share with you. They sent this letter and it explains what Artza is. Let me just read a little portion of this. Artza was founded during the COVID pandemic with the mission of connecting people to the land in stories of the Bible and to support small, local Israeli businesses and charities when travel was forbidden. Once again, we find ourselves in a position where there is no tourism and tens of thousands of small businesses are struggling to make ends meet. Many of their employees have been called into the Army Reserves, and large orders are no longer coming through. So you guys, if you can, if you have the spare money, please consider buying an Artza box. It is worth the money. It's really fun, especially if you have kids. I promise you your kids will like it. I know that ours have. All right, so here we go on church news. Of President Holland's health and recovery, Elder Renlund writes, God is in the details. Here's a picture of both of them together. Just a quick reminder, I'm sure that you're aware, but in case you're not, President Ballard passed away. In fact, he passed away on the 12th of November. And then 3 days later is when President Holland became the new acting president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. And it has to do with seniority. Right now, the actual president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles is Dallin H. Oaks, but because he's serving in the first presidency, the most senior apostle in the Quorum of the 12 becomes the acting president. And so it's now President Jeffrey R. Holland. As of right now, he's 83 years old. Looks like he just had his birthday, so I missed that one. But that's where we're at. And then I just want to remind you of this really interesting thing that happened in between the time that President Ballard passed away and when President Holland became the new acting president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. There's this comet that we've been watching, Comet 12P Pons Brooks, that for the first time in 69 years has started erupting as it's approaching the sun. It has, if I remember right, a 71-year orbit, I think. And so it started erupting this year, and it's had 4 eruptions, the first one in July, then there's been a couple other ones. And the most recent one is one that was pretty significant in the history of this comet because it changed its, the shape of its comma. They used to call this comet the Millennium Falcon comet or the Devil comet because it looks like it has two horns. Well, this latest eruption was its largest that's ever been observed, and now it no longer has those two horns, quote unquote. Now it's just perfectly circular. It also changed color to a different green color, and then it was the brightest eruption so far. So anyway, it's just interesting that it happened within that window of time. But let's go ahead and look at this. Whenever I think about Jeffrey R. Holland, by the way, I think about the fact that he has ties to the land of Israel, because he was president of BYU at the time of the BYU Jerusalem Center being established and built, and then just from what we've read, he has a lot of connections there, and he met with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, him and Elder Cook, a few years ago. So I feel like he's possibly significant, or he's obviously significant, but that he has that special thing about him, his history with Israel. Okay, so it says here, as he celebrated Thanksgiving, Elder Dale G. Renlund of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles reflected on recent miracles, including the recent recovery from health challenges of President Jeffrey R. Holland, acting president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. Elder Renlund had a quote-unquote unique vantage point to President Holland's hospitalization this fall, as he accompanied the late President M. Russell Ballard, then acting president of the Quorum of the 12, as he checked daily on then Elder Holland. Each time they visited, President Ballard and Elder Renlund gave their sick colleague a blessing. Quote, by way of background, I have spent years visiting patients in hospitals. Many were critically ill, and I saw many die. The second time I accompanied President Ballard, President Holland was in critical condition. Adrenaline-like drugs were being used to support his circulation. He was virtually non-responsive. The physicians didn't know exactly what was wrong and had informed his children that the prognosis was extremely poor. I felt a sense of foreboding. Now, really quick, this is news to me. I didn't know how bad his condition was. I don't think that it's been said publicly, but we all remember, hopefully you remember, we've covered the fact that he was hospitalized for a time. We were wondering if he was going to make an appearance this general conference, and it felt like maybe it was the end. And what ended up happening is President Ballard passed away, and now we have President Holland. And it's strange. It's strange that the doctors didn't know what was going on. I don't know how often that happens. If you're in the medical field, let me know. If you have experience with patients passing away and you don't know exactly why, let me know. We do know that there are, at the very least, spiritual attacks that take place. I'm not necessarily suggesting that that's what happened, but I know, and maybe I can do a video about this sometime. I know that it's been said that Satan can influence people's health and bring about sickness and stuff like that. So I don't know that would be interesting if that was the case. You know, if President Holland has a special mission and Satan's trying to prevent it. I don't know. It's just things to think about. Calm down. But anyway, that's just interesting. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, but let's continue. Okay, Elder Renlund told President Ballard that the only way President Holland would come back to meaningly fulfill his apostolic calling was through divine intervention. That was the only way. Quote, physicians, surgeons, and medicines were not going to do it. Only through God's blessings would it happen. President Ballard nodded and said, we will just have to keep praying and exercise our faith. Elder Renlund wrote that the next time he accompanied President Ballard to the hospital, President Holland was, quote, sitting in a chair, chatting with nurses, asking about breakfast. He asked about Elder Renlund's family. And then continuing, Elder Renlund says, he was his usual self. It was a miracle. It was divine intervention. He was discharged from the hospital and gained strength by the day. When President Ballard's health took a turn for the worse, President Holland reversed the roles and became an extraordinary ministering brother for the rest of President Ballard's life. End quote. Now President Holland has been set apart as the acting president of the quorum, he said. And then continuing, he says, God is in the details. President Holland has been preserved for such a time as this. That's an interesting thought. He has been preserved for such a time as this. You know, who knows what that means exactly? We know that we're getting closer to the second coming. For all we know, what if President Holland is one of those two prophets? I've talked about that before. I have a much looser idea of what that means. I'm not saying that I'm right, but it's interesting that when President Nelson started his presidency, he went on a world tour, and him and President Holland, at the time Elder Holland, went to Jerusalem. They went together. And I know that he's been there a bunch of times, and who knows, what's in store in the future. We also know that there's been a lot of attacks on the church. Sister Nelson talked about that in the Alberta, British Columbia area devotional, where she said in the lead up to the October 2022 General Conference that they knew that conference was going to be a singular event because of the sheer number of attacks on the church. So it'd be interesting to see everything that's going on behind the scenes if the adversary, is trying to prevent President Holland from doing whatever, whether it has to do with the two witnesses or whether it's just whatever. It's clear that Heavenly Father wants him here right now. So maybe we should all pay attention. Okay. How blessed my quorum is because of him. How thrilled I am to learn from and take direction from him. God lives. This is his church. He is directing it. This I know. And I am thankful for this knowledge. End quote. President Holland responded to Elder Renlund's post, commenting, quote, Elder Renlund, the support I felt from you, our dear President Ballard, and other members of the Quorum of the 12 in the first presidency during my recovery cannot be overstated. I thank you and I love you. I thank Heavenly Father for the health he has granted, allowing me to serve a little longer. Oh boy, these are exciting times. So anyway, so there's that. Okay, from here, let's start talking about this weirdness going on with Venezuela. This is BNO News. Venezuela has released a new official map, which includes all of Guyana's Esquiba region. And here you go. And the Esquiba region is this big part right here, which takes up a sizable portion of Guyana, by the way. Well, we're about to look at some more maps. Well, no, let's just look at this right here. So here you go. Here you go. This is El País International. Here's Guyana right here. And this shaded area is what Venezuela just annexed. And I would assume, unless something big happens, it's going to remain that way. I don't know much about Guyana's military forces. I don't know that anybody would step in and go to war against Venezuela to stop this from happening. I don't know. Brazil is, I'll show you some stuff with Brazil, but I don't think that they're going to do anything. So the country of Guyana now potentially is going to look like this instead moving forward. This tiny, it was already a small country, but now it's even smaller. This is a little bit alarming. Again, we're going to go through all the different significant territorial disputes in just a minute, but this is happening right now. Let me read some of this. Venezuela-Guyana dispute. Maduro mobilizes the army and announces annexation of Essequibo region. There he is. 2 days after the referendum on Essequibo, a territory disputed between Venezuela and Guyana, the government of Nicolas Maduro is moving forward to try to enforce what was approved Sunday in a vote that registered almost no participation in the streets, but which Chavismo hailed as a victory with 2.4 million voters, reawakening a crisis of credibility in the country's electoral authorities. In a television appearance Tuesday, Maduro presented a new official map of Venezuela with Essequibo incorporated without the disputed delimitation during a Council of State in which he announced a series of measures in upcoming legislation to cement Caracas's possession of the territory and its resources. Earlier, Maduro had sent a military contingent to Puerto Barima on the Venezuelan Atlantic border, close to the limits of the area under claim. The war narratives have begun. And that's my question. Is there going to be war over this? Is there going to be war? I looked at South America. South America is not really known for war. Now, there certainly has been war. But it seems that most of the serious wars are in the past. So they have these two timelines on this Wikipedia article. You have different things, Peruvian War of Independence, Argentine War of Independence and stuff like that. And then they have another timeline for more recent times. And the most recent wars, quote unquote, or conflicts are these ones. Everyone remembers the Falkland War between Argentina and the United Kingdom. It has to do with the island that is off the coast of Argentina. The United Kingdom has possession of it. And then as far as like an actual war, it seems that the most recent war was the Cenepa War. Did you guys know about the Cenepa War? I didn't. This was back in 1995. The Cenepa War, 1995, also known as the Alto Cenepa War, was a brief and localized military conflict between Ecuador and Peru, fought over control of an area in Peruvian territory. But as you can see, it says right here, that went on for a month and 2 days. Were there any casualties? Has the belligerents? Yeah, there were some killed. Let me know if you participated, if you're a veteran of the Cenepa War. And then the only other two things is you have the internal conflict in Peru. The internal conflict in Peru is an ongoing armed conflict between the government of Peru and the Maoist guerrilla group Shining Path and its remnants. So it's like one of these, well, what it says, a guerrilla group, similar to the next one, Colombia. Now, I think everyone's maybe more aware of the Colombian guerrillas and this like long standing conflict. The Colombian conflict began on May 27th, 1964. It is a low-intensity, asymmetric war between the government of Colombia, far-right paramilitary groups, and crime syndicates, and far-left guerrilla groups, fighting each other to increase their influence in Colombian territory. Some of the most important international contributors to the Colombian conflict include multinational corporations, the United States, Cuba, and the drug trafficking industry. So it's just a hot mess, but it's a slow, hot mess. So not a whole lot going on, really, relatively speaking, in South America. So going back to Venezuela, is there going to be some kind of war over this? If there is it just going to be like a small conflict? I mean, it can't really be that big. I wouldn't assume. I cannot picture larger countries like the United States, the UK, whatever, going in and getting involved in this. I haven't seen anything to suggest that anyway. Okay, so the war narratives has begun. The war of narratives has begun. A few weeks ago, Guyana raised a small flag on a small hill. Guyana raised a flag on a small hill in Essequibo. On the day of the referendum, the Venezuelan Ministry of Communication released a video in which indigenous people lowered the Guyanese flag and raised the Venezuelan flag. Maduro is now counterattacking with everything at his disposal. Okay, I'm going to move on from that. Quote, "We want the peaceful rescue of the Guyana Essequiba," said Maduro. "Our Guyana Essequiba has been de facto occupied by the British Empire and its heirs, and they have destroyed the area." End quote. He added in reference to the agreements made during Hugo Chavez's presidency, which created PetroCaribe. At the time, Venezuela offered discount oil to the CARICOM countries in exchange for diplomatic support for its Bolivarian revolution. However, in this historical dispute over Essequibo, those countries have traditionally supported Guyana. Maduro has instructed the state oil company PDVSA to drop a map of exploration and exploitation of the resources in Essequibo, and ordered the National Assembly to draft a law prohibiting oil concessions granted by Guyana in the territorial sea to be delimited. The U.S. company ExxonMobil has a maritime platform in the area. Quote, "We are giving 3 months to the companies that are exploiting resources there without Venezuelan permission to comply with the law," he said. The Venezuelan president also asked the National Assembly to create environmental protection areas in national parks in the territory. Jeez, they're moving pretty fast. The dispute dates back to 1777, when the Captaincy General of Venezuela included the 159,500 square kilometer region into a map of the country, despite the territory not having been occupied by Venezuela, either when it was part of the Spanish Empire or after independence. In 1899, British Guyana managed to set limits in the Paris Arbitral Tribunal in a process that has been described as rigged. So that's how Guyana came to be. 1899. Venezuela has always felt that it's been rigged, and now they're acting on it over the last few days. Redrawing the map, moving military assets into that area, as well as, I guess, oil companies and park rangers and stuff like that. Brazil has been a little bit wary of this. On this Reuters article, it says Brazil reinforces border with Venezuela in Guyana over Essequibo tensions. Brazil's military is reinforcing its border due to rising tensions between its neighbors Venezuela and Guyana over Venezuela's claim to the Essequibo region, the Ministry of Defense said on Tuesday. The four-wheel drive, Guayacuru armored vehicles will join an upgraded 18th Mechanized Cavalry Regiment, whose forces will increase to 600 soldiers to improve security along the border and intensify surveillance to avoid surprises, a military source told Reuters. Quote, "Neither side will be able to take advantage of our territory," the Army officer said. At issue is 160,000 square kilometers region, more than twice the size of Ireland, that is mostly thick jungle. Brazil's top diplomat for Latin America and the Caribbean, Gisela Padovan, said the main road connection between Venezuela and Guyana is through Brazilian territory due to the inaccessible terrain of the Essequibo, but its use in any military action would not be accepted by her country. Quote, "We are following the situation with concern. I do not believe it will come to an armed conflict," she said in an interview on Monday in which she urged a peaceful resolution. And here we go. Meanwhile, in Canada, escaped kangaroo punches Canadian officer. So, conflict all over the world, the end of times. Okay, so there's this article here called List of Territorial Disputes on Wikipedia, and there's a ton, as you may expect. I think most of them very, very minor, but they do have these maps for the larger disputes, and they're ones that you probably have already heard about. For example, disputes over territory in the South China Sea. I know that the U.S. Navy has been pretty active in this region to ensure freedom of navigation, and because China is like wanting to claim a lot of this, and it's affecting these other countries. So you have those kind of disputes going on. You have this one, the Kashmir region, that Pakistan and India are in conflict over. So that's a famous one. We recently talked about Armenia and Azerbaijan, and what was basically, well, as it says here, a de facto government or a de facto country that's supposed to dissolve at the beginning of this year of 2024. So we talked about that recently. Of course, there's the Israeli-Palestinian or Israeli-Arab conflict, and that's still ongoing, as we all know. And then, of course, there's the war in Ukraine. Russia has invaded Ukraine, and according to them, have annexed these 4 oblasts or provinces after a 5th that they had initially annexed, Crimea. So 5 total. And so that's going on. And then China again with Taiwan. So, I don't know. I don't know if there's kind of like a domino effect going on. We've talked about Taiwan, for example. Everyone's known that for a long time, China wants to take Taiwan. They view it as a renegade province. And now that you have these different things erupting all over the place, maybe this is the time for China to go ahead and stake their claim and take Taiwan back, because the attention of the West and the United States is divided between all these different conflicts. And I guess the question has to be asked, what are you going to do about it? If China went after Taiwan, would the United States go to war with China over that? I don't know. We haven't gone to war with Russia over Ukraine. I don't think that we're going to go to war with Venezuela over Guyana. So the way that I see it, and I'm obviously not an expert, but the more that this type of thing happens, the more that you have countries going and annexing territory from other countries without any sort of punishment, like any meaningful punishment and negative consequences, it's probably just going to encourage others to do the same. Don't you think? I mean, obviously, sanctions against Russia, it doesn't seem to have dissuaded them from doing what they're doing. I'm not sure I've ever seen sanctions as a very big threat. Of course, I don't know. I'm not an expert, but I can't think of a time where some country decided to alter its course because of sanctions. I know there's been sanctions against Iran, but they still have this like long-term goal. So maybe it's kind of like, I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't even comment on it. But the fact of the matter is, I feel like every time that a country is successful at taking territory from a neighboring country, it's just gonna encourage others to do the same. And so are we reaching like a new stage in world history? Is this part of the final conflicts in this world where everybody just like goes for whatever they want, whatever they claim is theirs, and it's just chaos all over the world? It might be. I don't know. It's a very strange thing to witness. Okay, and then let's finish off talking about Israel. On the Institute for the Study of Wars map of the Gaza Strip, they don't have anything down here yet. And this, according to the website, this is updated as of today. I'm recording this on the 6th. but they don't have anything here. They just have Israeli forces up here in the north. Basically, mostly looking the same as it has for the last little while, but there has been advances in the south, according to different news outlets. On X, you have this account, War Mapper, where they show, incursions into the southern Gaza Strip. And this seems to be backed up with news stories that I'm about to, one that I'm going to cover. They're going for Khan Yunis. I think that's basically the largest city in the southern Gaza Strip. So up north is Gaza City, and then down south is Yan Kunis, or whatever it's called. Khan Yunis, it says it right here. So on Times of Israel, there's this article, IDF troops fight in central Khan Yunis as Netanyahu says Israel closing in on Sinwar. Sinwar is an important person. He's, from what I understand, he's like the top person that's actually in the Gaza Strip. He's like the top Hamas chief that's physically in the Gaza Strip, whereas other ones that are above him are outside of Gaza. I think some of them are in Qatar, I want to say, in other countries. Okay, so what's going on here? The IDF said Wednesday evening that its troops had surrounded the city of Khan Yunis in the southern Gaza Strip and were operating in its center. As Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu sent a message to Hamas's Gaza chief, Yahya Sinwar, that Israel was closing in on him, and rocket barrages from the strip were fired at the southern city of Beersheba. Quote, the entire leadership of the Hamas terror organization, political and military, grew up in the area of the city of Khan Yunis, including Yahya Sinwar, Mohammed Sinwar, and Mohammed Daif. Now the city is surrounded by the 98th Division, the IDF said. Netanyahu issued a video statement Wednesday evening saying that the IDF forces were currently surrounding Sinwar's house, adding, his home isn't his castle, and he can flee, but it's just a matter of time until we get to him, Netanyahu said. Hagari later clarified that, quote, Sinwar's home is the Khan Yunis area, indicating that no specific building serving as a residence for Sinwar was being encircled. Sinwar is believed to have been hiding in Hamas's vast tunnel network since the terror group launched its deadly attacks on southern Israel on the 7th of October. And here he is right here, this dude. Quote, Sinwar is not above ground, he is underground. I won't elaborate on where exactly and what we know. Our job is to get to Sinwar and kill him. End quote. Sinwar is believed to be the mastermind of Hamas's October 7th assault. He has not been seen publicly during the war, and Israeli leaders have vowed to take him out. So that's pretty significant. It seems like they're closing in on him. They are in that really important city for Hamas, I suppose. And so that's where we're at. And I guess the big question is, how much longer is this war going to go? How close are they? And once they succeed, what happens after that? Is the rest of the Arab and Islamic world going to accept the outcome of what happens? Is it going to be the red line? There was one statement it may have been from this guy, I'm not sure, but there was a statement from Hamas that said that the red line for Iran and for Hezbollah would be if Hamas is destroyed. And I guess that's yet to be seen. Is that going to be the next big escalation? I don't know. I have a hard time believing that they put in all this time and effort and planning. Something that the Israeli intelligence community was not able to pick up on. All this just for it to end like this. I feel like it has to be part of a bigger plan that involves other groups and countries. And like I've said before, I wouldn't be surprised if it's because they need as much justification as possible. Iran, Yemen, I guess Yemen's involved, or at least the Houthis are, and possibly other countries and groups. They need as much justification as possible, possibly for the next step, which is, we know that Israel wants to destroy, or Iran wants to destroy Israel. Is this part of a grand master plan? I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. That's going to be it for this one. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.